All right, everyone, welcome back to the SOF podcast, State of Flow, and that's soft, not soft. Today, we got a bit of a mix-up with our team members here. We got me and Russ, Tristan and Landon are away for the long weekend, but we're also joined by the wonderful Brady as well, Brady Heimstra. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Heimstra? Okay.
Well,
so maybe
Heemstra.
it's Heemstra.
Yeah.
Ah, dang
Heemstra.
it. That was my second guess.
Yeah.
Should have put that one first. So we're going to chat about content creation. Brady has some pretty successful vlogs from when he was traveling, and now he's transitioning to doing more real estate-based content, and probably talk a little bit about real estate and sales as well. So the story of these vlogs, man, that's what I want to hear. You used to just be traveling all the time?
Yeah. So when I was doing my bachelor's up north, I worked at a logging camp on weekends, and it was really good money, and it was able to, pay for my degree. And then also at the end of every year, I was able to afford like a trip for me and my friends. So we started out with Hawaii the first year, and we started getting a little bit more ambitious each year. We ended up doing like Bali and the Philippines, like really all kinds of places. And yeah, that's really when I first kind of discovered my passion for vlogging and just having those moments kept in time. So it mostly just started as like, just a video diary for myself, but I was posting them on my YouTube, and just, people like around town used to, just come up to me and be like, dude, like your video is so cool. So I was able to like make connections through that with people I didn't know. And kind of built a little bit of a community, and not too big, but big enough. And I just I'm continuing to do vlogs right now, but we're transitioning more into a real estate centered vlogging experience. But I still do want to continue with the travel vlogs.
Sweet. Yeah, I know. And a lot of when you first started this is when like vlogging wasn't really cool.
Yeah.
So, like now it's not uncommon to see like someone having a selfie stick or have a vlog kit rolling around taking videos. So like you're doing this pre kind of all that craziness. I know one thing that like we just started trying to capture that content and do all that is like feeling comfortable filming in public. So that might be a point that you could touch on. Obviously, it's a little different when you're traveling and like to remote countries, or a lot of people expect that. But like say right now when you're trying to capture your content, like what's some good little tips and tricks you could tell people?
Yeah, well, it's still weird to film in public, for one. Like
it never gets easier.
Like you'll never really get over that. What I find to be easiest though is to just like set your camera up somewhere. I like to sometimes be mobile and holding it, but I feel like that draws a lot more attention to you than if you just kind of like sit down somewhere and just I have like a gorilla pod. It's like a little tripod that you can adjust the legs on, and you can just set that up kind of anywhere. You can wrap it around anything and just like talking to it. Just, I don't know, it's a lot of an easier experience, and you're focusing less on what's going on around you if you're more stationary. So that's what I've been doing in the most recent videos.
I guess if anyone looks, you can just be like, hey, look, I'm FaceTime my mom, okay? Just like, leave me alone.
Yeah, exactly, right? Well, it's hard with my, because I use like a big ass DSLR. So it's not just a phone.
With a camera.
Yeah, it's like a huge camera there. But yeah, you could, if you have a phone, definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. So like in what would be some experiences that you think have changed your life traveling? Because I know like I've never really done it. I just got my first trip booked with my girlfriend to Greece, but every person says once you've done it once, it changes you and it's addicting.
Yeah.
So like share some of those things that like it's maybe evolved you and like how it's benefited just your outlook on life.
Yeah. So, well, when you're traveling, not everything's going to go to plan. So there's a lot to be said about being comfortable with your plans changing, being able to react quick and just kind of, be okay with the situation, evolving as you're traveling. Also the people aspect, just like meeting all different kinds of people, engaging in like those different cultures, because especially if you're traveling to like Asia or even Europe, it's like Europe's still shares like a lot of Western ideals with us. And, we come from a lot of European descent. But yeah, Asia, definitely different. So getting to like know people and just understanding their traditions and, you know, so for instance, I'll give you an example. So in North America, like we're really time sensitive. If you book a meeting for 10 o'clock, like people are going to be there at like 9:45 or 10 at the latest. You know, you go to the Philippines or anything like that, it's like 10 o'clock could mean anywhere from 10 till noon. You know, like people might show up a half hour, an hour late. It's just kind of like whatever time. And you need to be like okay with that. You need to be able to like understand that's just kind of how things roll around there. And just, you know, the communication can also be different, right? Like giving eye contact, for example, might be different, you know, like showing signs of respect and all that. So yeah, just learning about other people's sensitivities and, you know, just the way different parts of the world think.
What's been the biggest culture shock you've had while traveling to all these places? Like the one thing that pops out where you're like, that was so different from North America.
I don't know. Off the top of my head, I remember in the Philippines, like the breakfasts are a lot different. Like I would just eat a hot dog for breakfast. They like they like stuff like that. Like, you know, I was like, oh, okay. I was able to kind of get behind it by the end. I was like, this kind of slaps, you know? Like,
Yeah.
It's like, when do you get to do this here? But yeah, I'm sure there's some other stuff. Yeah, I'll definitely let you know if anything pops into my head.
Well, yeah, that's hilarious. Tristan would have been so stoked if he was here on that one. He loves
Yeah.
Costco hot dogs.
Yeah.
So he would be like, no way, a whole country where we eat hot dogs for breakfast.
Yeah.
But I actually was doing a little bit of research for the community last week on happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And studies show that when people start to acquire money, the only things that they can spend their money on that lead to long-term happiness is travel and experiences.
Mm-hmm. I believe it.
That those, like, you can buy stuff, but you'll just hedonically adapt to it, and then you just go back to baseline. But these experiences tend to be things that genuinely like make people a lot happier, even in the long run, to have experienced. Like, how many times do you hear of people buying? Well, even like Hermosi talks about how he bought fancy cars and everything, and then quickly he's like, "This is actually kind of annoying. Now I can't park it whenever I want. I can't drive them when the weather sucks. Like, I can't go down certain roads." Like, it actually, like, he said that basically a net negative on his happiness buying these vehicles after like the luxury wore off. But you don't really hear of anyone say, "Oh, I went to like Bali, Dubai, Thailand, and it was the worst experience of my life. I wish I never ever went on this crazy trip." Like, you don't, unless someone has a really bad time for whatever reason, you almost never hear that. So it's no surprise that people get the travel itch.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, there's a lot of meaning that can be found. Like, when you're traveling, like, you can definitely get involved in, you know, like community outreaches and stuff, and like foreign, you know, investment that helps develop certain communities. Like, I went to Myanmar a few years ago, and we did like a small business for investment. We were helping bring some capital to these small villages doing rice drying, because initially they would, you know, just lay the rice out in the sun and just pretty much pray that the weather's good to be able to like make, you know, food so that people can eat. So just bringing that capital there, and yeah, like meeting those people, like, definitely, you know, it provides a lot of meaning in life for sure. And those memories, they stick with you forever.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Russ, any other things on travel before we do a bit of a pivot here?
No, like, I'm just super stoked to eventually go and experience it firsthand. And you just brought up some really good points. Like, originally, like kind of my thought process on it is like, I wanted to like delay it a bit more. Not like the gratification aspect, but more like, hey, like, once I have my business running, once I have everything, we're status quo where I'm happy and I'm making all the income that I'm desiring. And that was like, I was delaying that process of potentially going and traveling. Where now, like, I've realized, well, I'll probably just always delay that to the next thing. And then it's like, hey, then I'll be out of my 20s, and then I'll be out of my 30s. And
Yeah.
just go do it. I think it's something that will probably hopefully change my life. And I'm very excited to speak on it after I go in September. So
Absolutely. And we're just missing each other by like
I
a
know,
week.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll
We're
be-
literally both going to the exact same place.
Yeah.
And we're in Greece and missing each other by a couple days. So I'll I'll definitely have to talk to you about how to properly vlog and get some cool shots when I go there. So
Yeah, we'll have to do another podcast and just talk about our experiences.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess a cool pivot would be is I know when I first met you, you knew a lot about economics. Obviously, you have a degree and like you took some post-secondary education. Share your story on you went to university and now you've pivoted to being like an entrepreneur, business owner in a different way. But share what you think were the pros of going to university.
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of pros to going to university, although a degree doesn't always give you nowadays what it used to. There's a lot of value to be had in being able to communicate your ideas, present them properly, write like a cohesive paper, and think critically. So I think those are skills, regardless of what degree that you get out of university. For me, doing an economics degree, especially when it comes to the microeconomics classes I've taken, certainly helps when you're running your own business. So I wasn't always looking to go down the entrepreneurial avenue though. Once I was out of university, I was looking into like embassy work because I paired my economics degree with like international studies. So I always wanted like a traveling job. But the more I thought about it, like I have a fiance now and I'm getting married, and I don't want to like have to like drag somebody around the world all the time. Even though she does like to travel, she wants to be like rooted in a single community, right? So it ended up working out where my video talents actually right out of university ended up getting noticed by a local brokerage in Prince George. And they hired me on as a full-time videographer. And that was an amazing experience. They were able to put me even through advanced drone licensing, which is like just a great thing to have anywhere around the world. You can pretty much fly a drone, even if you're near airports and stuff like that. And yeah, they had a cool system for their brokerage where they vertically integrated all their marketing systems. So like on staff, we had a graphic designer, I was the videographer, and then we had a like marketing manager and everything. And yeah, there was a lot of value provided to its agents. The brokerage ended up having some trouble with recruiting new agents, so they offered to pay for my license, my real estate licensing course. So that was like an excellent opportunity for me. So I definitely jumped on that. But by the time I was finished my schooling, the brokerage pretty much went under because they weren't able to, attract enough agents for it to be feasible to continue business. And so that just kind of proves the point that, you could be giving all the value in the world in marketing to your agents, but if you don't have an enticing, I guess, like managing broker system or support system where somebody is there for your agents, especially when they're new, they're going to go elsewhere. So it ended up falling through. And when I was licensed, I was dating Jade at the time, and we both wanted to end up in Kelowna. So I was like, now is the time to move to Kelowna. Because I'm transitioning my job and I'm starting everything new. So I might as well, start completely new down here. So yeah, that's my story.
That's cool because like ours would be very similar on wanting to end up in Kelowna, and both started from square one doing that. And it's cool that you brought up that because like right now, me and my team, we're just in the process of recruiting, attracting people, and how to do it properly. And it probably, you know what I mean? Like we were coming up with all these fancy ideas, all these different cool things to entice people, when it probably just comes down to like, hey, like I'm going to actually get you more business. Like here, you join our team, we have a guaranteed $100,000 plan in your first year. And so that's what we're working on to dish out to people. To attract them over. But it's just cool to see how like you really have to monitor what's and this is the tough part of like what actually is driving business, and something that's just like is that a necessary expense? So a lot of like having a full-time marketing manager, having all these things, don't get me wrong, we'd love to be there, but we're just not close to that scale yet.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, that's all important, just having a plan for your partners, but also, just being able to support them, like being there for them when they have questions, and just being able to, just give them a bit of the time of day, right? Like if you're, if you don't have any support for them, they're gonna, look for it anywhere else. So.
Totally. And I think that's where we kind of stand on our offer. It's more like how we are legitly going to help them. Like what are like me and my business partner Lee going to do to help them? Not like we're passing you off to someone else to look at it, or you go to EXP World for training, or you go to our managing brokers. Like, no, like we will help you. And this is what we do. And this is our training program to have you have success. And I know a lot of people, like their biggest pitch is, oh, you get to be around us. You get to see the business. You get to see what we're doing. Yeah, but that, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it that that's going to help elevate them and stuff, but you need to take that a step further and actually do something that helps them. They can't just like follow you around like a puppy dog and give little tidbits. Like you have to get them in there, give them actually stuff to see if they'll succeed and start off hot and stuff like that. So
Anything to say on that?
I got quite a few questions that I'm very curious of, actually.
All
This is something that I've heard from a lot of people is microeconomics, very, very useful. Macroeconomics, basically a pseudoscience. So I want to just hear like from someone who's taken an economics degree, where do you stand on like that statement?
That's funny. I see where it's coming from, but I don't know. The last few years, I've seen a lot of value in macroeconomics, especially with how the government has been handling, the whole COVID and, money supply issues and all that stuff. From what I've seen, I made videos from way back talking about risk for stagflation and all that stuff. And yeah, it's still useful knowledge, I think. Like, absolutely it is. Because what I've learned has it hasn't been 100% true in the sense of what I've seen and what I thought was going to happen, but it's probably like 95, and it's still coming to fruition now. The biggest thing that I've learned being out of school is when they teach you these things in macro, the government will make a policy, or they'll do something. They'll raise rates, lower rates, affect the money supply in any way. And in macroeconomics, they kind of never discuss that these effects or these causations take time. It's more assumed that it just happens right away. So like the government will lower interest rates and asset prices will immediately shoot up to the current price level. And I think over the last few years, especially with real estate, Russell, you can attest to this, is that just hasn't been true. Like as soon as they lowered rates, like it is a gradual process and it takes months for prices to set at their current level. And I don't know the reason why that is. Maybe people are just a little bit slower to act, or maybe, it's just the information isn't coming across to people as widespread or as quickly as you think it is. But yeah, it's not an instant effect. And even like with inflation, like that took time. Like inflation didn't occur as soon as the government started printing money and giving out CERB. We're seeing it now, right? Like months and months later. So just when I was doing my macro degree, whenever you're doing these calculations and these formulas, it's almost an assumption that the causation is happening right away. But in real life, that's not the case.
That's a good tip.
I read some really interesting stuff and like listening to just how much actually 2008 played a factor to what's happening now in terms of lack of supply and things like that. So that's like, you know what I mean? That's 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And people had like, and it's funny, like, you know what I mean? Especially people, well, like I would say anyone that's in economics on a high level still doing it and really is passionate about it, they always connect the web like after the fact, like here's why this is doing it. But it was still really cool to hear that, like, say the real estate boom, they based it all off of 2008, how it crippled all the big developers, all the people that did house building. So we had such a lack of supply of housing. Then all of a sudden interest rates got to where they were. We had this massive amount of like demand for housing, but we didn't have the supply, and they related it all back to fear of 2008. So like the biggest developers, and the guy talking about was like the Toll brother, who is the biggest developer in the US, and he just talked about how like for years they talked about how like, hey, I don't think we should be build that amount of houses. Like we need to make sure we're mitigating our risk. We're not over leveraging, over doing all this stuff. So it's kind of like a perfect storm when interest rates hit the lowest in history. All these things came up. Money was so cheap to borrow. And then COVID happened where it's like, hey, like I work from home now. Let's go here. Or even more people, like it had just a domino effect where it's like, hey, we didn't go traveling for a year. So now we have an extra $10,000, $20,000, where it's like, oh, hey, I never really had this extra cash. Maybe let's buy another house or whatever it could be. So it's like literally like a spider web of so many different moving parts and things attached to it. But I thought that was very interesting how they related it back to 2008.
So instead of saying then that macroeconomics is pseudoscience, would you just say that the more macro you go, the less certainty you should have about your conclusion?
I would say so. But not only that, just there's other factors that, the likelihood that there's other factors influencing the outcomes, exponentially grows.
Yeah.
There's one factor that I actually put a lot more importance on than I would have a couple of years ago, and that's consumer confidence.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the psychology.
The psychology and how connected everyone is with social media now. Like consumer confidence actually plays like a big factor in what's going on. And I used to always think like it didn't really matter what some of the population thought, you know what I mean, in terms of the way the market was going, because a lot of them aren't in the market or aren't investing or aren't doing anything that requires some of these big economic things. Like it doesn't actually really affect their lives. But it's just crazy how like even right now everyone's saying that the real estate prices are going down, stock market's going down. The consumer confidence is low. And it's so,such a direct reflection of what's going on, and it's like maybe it plays a bigger factor than we thought.
Well, intermediate actually is where I learned it, and advanced, you take into account consumer confidence in like GDP equations sometimes. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's interesting to hear, because I sat down with someone like quite a few months ago who's super into like history and economics. And like I come from more like studying psychology. So we were like shooting the shit about like macro. And every time he asked me a question, I was like, well, from the psychology. And every time I asked him a question, he's like, well, history would say this, and economics. I'm like, holy shit, like there's like so much more to this than just our specific fields.
Yeah.
What other fields are even influencing this that we're not even factoring in?
Exactly. Yeah. And you mostly measure consumer confidence just through consumer spending, right? And you see where the money's going and what people are doing with it. So
moving away from macro, micro, from what I've heard, has so much use case in entrepreneurship. Like understanding microeconomics. I think even Naval says that it's one of the key pillars of being in business is understanding micro. So from your perspective as an entrepreneur, what have been the most useful microeconomic ideas that you apply to business, like daily or weekly?
Right. Yeah, that's pretty difficult. I think just being able to measure my costs and returns for my like business's budget and advertising, really seeing what conversions lead to. I mean, anybody can do this. Russ probably does it too. Like, but a lot of people don't know that is microeconomics essentially, right? I mean, if you're spending more than you're making, we call that a shutdown point. You probably shouldn't be in business. So, I mean, it's pretty elementary, but like, we pretty much, learn all that exact same stuff. But the difference is, in micro, we graph it all and we try and learn, okay, what would shift our like supply and demand curves and influence our price levels and stuff like that. So, for instance, like, just honestly playing with what's giving my business the highest returns, what's giving it the most value, cutting out, what's losing me money. And just playing to my strengths more. So it's cool to be able to model that for sure, although I don't really do it. So I hope that answered your question.
Well, I just find it well, even to like say just starting out your business, you truly won't know where to put your money. So I do think like the micro aspect is you do have to be diligent in knowing what's the best dollar cost producing activity. Like a lot of times, like some of these really fancy, how do I say this? Because it goes against like our whole marketing philosophy, but like the actual return on doing a big video production on a listing isn't the actual best for my profit business. But it's tough because I was trying to track how do I actually measure, because I do feel like it does get me more business down the line. But on the status quo of that transaction, it is not a very good net income part of the equation. But I was trying to figure out and factor in like, well, and it's almost impossible to track. That's kind of like people seeing that we do it. It's just because it makes the person so pumped, like, hey, they're going the extra mile. So does it get us more business? I would say so, which is probably in the long run going to make me have more money in my pocket in the day. But right now there's a couple times where you're just like, frick, is that really the best way to put, like, because I always compare it to say my Google ads, like the last video production we did was like almost like $1,200, right? If I put that into leads, like, well, that's another couple deals that I could have potentially got.
But just think to yourself, like, you don't want to, just be that agent who just puts all his money into Google ads and then just doesn't really provide as much value to their clients. Because I feel like you want to be that guy who, produces the A-tier videos, the guy who really goes the extra mile. Like you said, it's about also knowing in the long run what's best for your business.
Totally. And that was like more my main point is like when you start out, like you're not going to really know where to put it. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't. The biggest take would be is just like truly figure out what's driving your business and what's not. And a lot of people say if they do some sort of marketing or a budget in terms of try to increase their business, they'll do it for a month and then it didn't work. Okay, no, like that's not actually testing to see if it played a factor in increasing your business. I always say any marketing plan we do, you got to at least try for 6 months to a year. And there's always metrics. Like say if we're going to do flyer drops, okay, well, we're dropping 20,000 flyers. I'm not just handing out 100 or 1,000. Like we're doing this on a massive scale.
Nice. Yeah, those are all great tips. Anything else from micro that you think business owners should be like aware of or consider when they go into business?
Well, yeah. I mean, I just think it's great to know you can get a lot of good like micro econ knowledge just on YouTube and stuff now. When I was first doing my degree, there was really nothing out there. And now there's like a ton of knowledge that you can learn for free. So, if you have a small business, I definitely encourage you to at least dip your toe into that water. I think it'll make you think about things that you hadn't before, or maybe that you subconsciously think about that you can now put into practice. Things like opportunity cost, right?
Like that's a big one.
It's a huge one. And I think everybody should be thinking about opportunity cost, whether it be like running a business or even just personal stuff in your life. I mean, it's just a good, value.
Applies to dating.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it applies to every aspect of life. There's not a single aspect of life you can tell me opportunity cost doesn't apply to. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a perfect example.
Yeah.
I want to specifically ask you about, this is me just like picking apart some of Naval's stuff. And just since you have such an economic background, I'm curious, do you think there's a strong use case for business owners to understand game theory?
Game theory. Yeah. That's like a Beautiful Mind, right? The bar example.
There might be a couple. I know it from the Prisoner's Dilemma.
Okay, yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Do you want to explain it, Talon, just so?
I'll do my best because I'm still wrapping my head around game theory. Like at least my understanding of the practical use case of it is understanding, okay, what is the psychology of what my competition or the other people influencing my decisions?
Yeah.
Like understanding that. Like I think in the Prisoner's Dilemma, it's something along the lines of, okay, when you're being interviewed, it's like, okay, if you tell us that you are guilty, then we'll like shorten your sentence. But if you tell us that you're not guilty and the other prisoner rats you out, we're going to double your sentence.
Yes.
So now you're like, okay, well, what happens in my future isn't just based on my decisions. It's actually based on another party's decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And to practically apply that to business, my thought would be understanding, okay, what is my competition thinking? What, like when I make an action or a move in the market, how is it going to influence like their next move? Like that's my understanding of the use case. Like, would you say it extends beyond that?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, most of those, economic theories would apply to, many aspects of life. The one I was thinking about, I think it was essentially the same thing. Yeah, you can really go anywhere with it, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I encourage anybody to really, just look into learning some economics, even be it basic stuff. I mean, it's super useful just to know, like, I mean, you're really into philosophy and stuff, right? Like, you'd be surprised just how many walks of life, like, it can cross over into, like, I'm sure with, like, a lot of values of stoicism, like, would probably line up with, like, classical economic theory and stuff like that.
I think so, because a lot of philosophy talks about what is your duty to the state and to your country and to your community. And a lot of that has an economic factor. Like I believe back in the day, what people used to do is they would go through like different stages of life and work different careers. So you would start out being more like a laborer, and then you'd maybe become an entrepreneur. Then you would go work in the state, you'd learn economics. And then like the end of your life, you would become a philosopher who helps influence the decisions of everyone else. But you'd have more knowledge base to do so because you understand all the different jobs. So I think there's a lot of utility in that, is understanding, okay, like consumer confidence, okay, what psychology applies to business, what economics like influence people's psychology, what is like the macro, the micro, like all of that. There's an interaction between everything. So I like your whole idea of, if you want to like learn something new or like even apply philosophy in different areas, like try learning different areas and try to like create connections in your mind of where they link.
Exactly. Yeah. And I mean, like, we can really go into this forever. Like you can talk about history, right? Like, philosophy, all that stuff, finance. Yeah. It all connects.
Yeah.
Yeah. In some way, shape, or form.
It's a deep rabbit hole. Do you have any economic questions there, Russ? Or?
No, I think I'm good.
You good? One thing that with having you guys here, I did want to talk about a little bit is sales. Because you guys being realtors, you deal with sales all the time. Like you're always selling clients on working with you, because especially in the Okanagan, it's a pretty high competition industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
Being a realtor.
I think it is. Yeah. Compared to Prince George, where I'm from, it's a big step up.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of real estate agents here for sure.
Yeah. I feel like during the pandemic, a lot of people had a career change towards real estate. I don't know what kind of numbers would reflect that. I haven't really looked at it, but I just talked to a lot of people who, started working from home. They're like, I'm going to get my license,
I don't know like if this stat's 100% true, but people have told me for the amount of population to real estate agents here in Kelowna is the highest per capita.
Really? Okay.
Canada.
I believe it. Yeah.
I would just instantly assume though, like 80-20 rule, that 80% of them are basically inactive in the market. Would be my initial assumption. Is even when people hear that, it's like, oh, it's a really saturated market. Should I get into it? It's like, if you can hustle and like you're a high achiever, you'll probably still beat 90-95% of them.
Yeah, for sure. And just being able to set yourself apart, obviously. I'm sure you guys have talked about this before on this podcast. So important, especially here. Yeah.
I look at it kind of like twofold. Like I do enjoy the competitive nature. It makes you elevate your game, makes you better. I also believe it makes it an opportunity. Because then if some people aren't going to be doing it at the same level that we are, and don't get me wrong, I have people that probably weren't 100% satisfied with my service after either. But I would say if I can make sure almost every one of our clients, we try to do the best we can, there's going to be a lot of people that will come into contact with that was maybe using someone before, that then they come across our service. They're like, this is just so much better.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's how I think it should be, honestly. Like making more than just a business connection, but like a personal one. That's at least how I run mine with my clients. I'm constantly in touch with them just about random stuff. Like, my clients from February are excavating their yard now, they're like doing a bunch of renovations. They like send me pictures. I'm like, oh, like sick, cool, like nice job, like when are we gonna sell? No, no, I never asked that, but just keeping in touch with them, and Yeah, it's honestly like it's making friends and getting paid to make friends. That's how I see it.
Cool.
Yeah.
I guess an interesting question I would have, when you are selling yourself, or say when you're trying to, like the whole salesman approach, you're trying to convince someone or get them to act on something that you think's in their best nature. Like, how do you go about doing that?
Oh, I always just I show them what I do, what my services are about. So, I mean, obviously we went into video, but I'll just mention like I do my own video and photo and everything for each listing. So I show them like previous examples and all that stuff, and I can go over, everything I do for my clients, and it's more of a just take it or leave it kind of thing for me. Like sometimes you'll get people to be like, oh, I can go down to 1.5%, and like list my house with them, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, they're going to walk into your house with a cell phone. They're going to take cell phone pictures, and they're probably going to push you to, I don't know, take whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't speak for, like every agent, like everybody's different, but, I never, talk bad about anybody, but I just try and differentiate myself, show them that, this is what I'm about. And I think the most important thing that people look for is that you have the time to, connect with them. Like if they ever have any questions or anything, that you get back to them quickly, and just being constantly in touch. Yeah. Whenever I get feedback from people at like the end of working with them, they always mention that it's good that I'm just responsive. And
makes them feel like you're actually working in their best
interest.
interest.
Yeah. So responsiveness is huge, and just making it more of a like fun experience rather than a stressful one.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I always find this interesting. My clients that have ever been the most challenging are the ones that want you to reduce your commission the most.
It's true.
So that's where like we're really trying to make a hard stand.
Yeah.
And like I do understand, like we do get paid a good service fee.
Yeah.
Then definitely there's no I'll never disagree with someone on that front.
Yeah.
But anytime I've ever been willing to, those people were the ones that like rode me the hardest and like wanted expectations that like no one would ever be able to meet.
Yeah.
So is it truly worth it? And don't get me wrong, I'm still at the phase where like you would have to be probably one of the most difficult people in the world for me to not go. Like we're not at the stage in our business journey that I can just be like, you know what, I don't feel like working with you.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sound like an asshole or a douchebag, but I do look forward to the time when I'm going to be able to do that and truly just get to work with the people that we're on the same wavelength. Like, hey, I love this person's energy. I love the way they are. That's who we work with.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Just because like the ebbs and flows of everything is an interesting realm.
It is.
I mean? I've never once had something not go wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's kind of it's how I'm trying to transition my business. I mean, like you said, I mean there are some difficult people out there, and sometimes you have to work with them, and you need to put on your game face and just do for the best for them that you possibly can. But yeah, I mean I'm not like anywhere near like a top producing Kelowna agent, but I do get a little bit picky with who I choose to work with. Yeah, but because that's just like how I run things.
The idea that the sale starts with just having the right prospect. Like, yeah. Something that I did undervalue in sales a lot until more recently is storytelling. Like so much. Like I actually remember doing a sales pitch one time, like for an investment deal where I was sitting with my two business partners, and the guy across from me was like, hey, so like, what's your story? Like, tell me about yourself. And I was like, oh yeah, like I used to be a student and now I do real estate. And like my partner literally kicked me in the shin, like under the table. And I was just like, and afterwards she's like, what the fuck was that? She's like, what kind of story was that? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is the opportunity where you can actually like provide like value. And I never really thought about it. But when I did a little more research, like studying storytelling for the community, stories are so powerful because facts don't change people's minds. Like you got to change their emotional state. And the easiest way to change an emotional state is with a good story. which I'm like, man, no wonder nonfiction starts every chapter with a story and then backs it up with facts.
Exactly. And I feel like stories just speak deeper to who we are and our desires. I don't want to get too deep in this podcast, but you know, like it's almost like super meta, you know, like there's a lot of like truth that can be held in storytelling. And I think, you know, if somebody can relate to that or they can understand it, then it resonates with them and you can just make a deeper connection with that person.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess one thing where I would maybe struggle in is like the under promise over deliver. But when you're selling yourself and you're telling the story about you, how do you do that without like over promising? Because
Right.
I've even heard people and like listen to stuff on YouTube where the person's like, hey, like you just try to do whatever you can to get it. You get the business, whatever. And they said in like our industry, the reality is you're not going to sell every house. You're not going to find every person a home. It's a numbers game, like a lot of those people will say. But where do you find the good balance between that? Where like, hey, like you're pushing yourself, you're telling a good story, you're sharing how like you're the one for them, but you're not coming across of like just a bullshitter or
Yeah. For me, I mean, not everybody will run their business like this, but I'm very transparent just on my journey and everything. Like I'll be like, you know, like I have experience, here's like my past work and everything, but you know, I'm always learning and I'm always trying to do better each time. So just bringing them along on that journey with me, I think people really appreciate it and they really want to be part of your overarching story as well from when you started from, you know, zero to hero.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah.
Another one for that too, Russ, is maybe just telling a story of when you went the extra mile for someone. Because even if you don't sell their house, like you will deliver on going the extra mile. Like I know you as a person, like even with my deal that you did, when we ran up against the hiccup where we needed a strata document or we needed a document from like a builder or some kind of development, and the sellers said they didn't have it, the realtor said they didn't have it, and without it we couldn't get financing.
Right.
So I was sitting there like, I guess we're fucked. Like there's nothing we can do. But Russ called the person, like he figured out who
called
did
the
work.
architecture firm that was doing the construction and see if they could get
Really?
it to me.
Way to go.
And they did. And I'm like, no other realtor that I know of would have done that at the time. I'm like, who would have actually been like, oh, I'll call around and figure out what architecture firm did this work and then
It was kind of funny because I was calling the team construction, but they didn't want to tell me who was doing it. Who did the architecture, because it was some sort of drawing or something that they wanted that was like signifying exactly what was doing it. It was kind of weird because like you would have thought the package and stuff that we're giving him on all the renovations for the strata building was like, it pretty much had everything in there, but yeah, they wanted like an actual like rendering of everything that was going on.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And like, I think that would be a good story of if they're like, well, what are you going to do for us that other people aren't? You could just say, well, I'm going to go the extra mile. But if you actually told that story, like, hey, like, look, there's this one client I was working with where there was no way we were going to close this deal unless we had this document. So I ended up calling around, getting access to the architecture firm and getting it. And there's not very many agents who are going to go that level for their clients. Like when you, like, if you were to say that story in that moment, I would have such a concrete understanding of the level of effort you're actually going to put in to like get me a house.
Yeah, no, that's probably a great story. I always like think of, even with sellers and stuff, I remember my first couple listings, like these tenants would not clean, and it was like a $1 million home. So we would drive there every showing to personally clean. Now I'd probably fucking pay someone to like go and clean. You know? It was like when I was doing the math, like it was like 25 minutes away.
Oh, yeah.
It'd take me like an hour. That was like 2 hours every single fucking day just to like do it. And like that was some of the things I'm like, there's probably no one that's doing this. Like we should just hire a cleaner. But like that was when you're trying to be super lean and mean when you're running your business. But yeah, just things like that. It's just like,
And you
I
get
should
good
tell
stories
people
out
more
of it
about
too.
that. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That was a difficult one. Like I didn't really know what I was doing either. So that was probably played a factor into like managing the whole thing. But the guy still talks to me and left me a really good review. And he's actually kind of a personal friend now.
Perfect.
His place that we sold there. And yeah, he was a great dude. Loved working with him too as well.
I think, people just want to see an effort at the end of the day, like there are some people who will be hard to work with and just want results, but most people, I'd say 80% of people just want to see effort on your part.
We actually had that the other day. Like we have a listing and then one of their neighbors got us to come over and give a presentation. And he's just like, okay, yeah, like when are you guys going to want to decide? And he's just like, if you sell that house for a price I feel like it was worth it, I'll call you. He was so cut and dry on it. And like we're trying to talk to him after, like I would say both me and my business partner are really good at like connecting with the person after. Like we'll sometimes talk to them for an hour, 2 hours after we've given a presentation that really like cements us getting it. And like you'd ask him questions, like he did not give a fuck what I had to say. Like I could have fucking said I was gonna like it didn't matter what we were gonna do for him. He did not care. He just strictly is like, if I feel like you've sold that house for enough, I'll get you to list mine.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because like it is a bit of a tough sale for us right now. So like we're doing everything we can to get it sold and trying to meet that person's expectations, right? Like I just always feel bad when he calls me for an update. Like usually Monday here, like I'll tell him what's sold, what's got listed in the area. We call him every day, but I just feel bad, like tell him like, oh, hey, we haven't got an offer yet. Only the one showing this week. It just is like, fuck, I need to get this guy's house sold. I need to help him. Like, what do you do to kind of maybe manage those? Cause like now we're transitioning in the market where, you listed a place, it didn't matter. Like you're getting it sold. Now it's like, oh shit, it might be 60 days.
Yeah. It's about having those tough conversations, right? And just explaining, what you understand the market is going towards, and hopefully they understand, and they have done a bit of research on where the market's going as well.
100%.
Yeah, but it's never easy discussions to have by any means.
But probably better to have them sooner than later, because the longer you put it off, the harder that conversation's going to be.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, from the get-go, definitely be on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming up to the end here, and I wanted to save this one like right for the end, especially seeing as Brady's really into economics. Are we going into a recession?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I think so. Yeah, just my 2 cents. I only have my bachelor's, man. It's like you're questioning me like I have a PhD something, but
we need to know this.
Yeah,
like,
we need to know this.
This answer might change when I do today.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like literally our whole TikTok audience is like, get Brady on to figure out if there's a recession.
Please tell me if I should pull my money now. Yeah. I think we're due for one, personally. Just looking over, the last couple of years and just where things have gone, but you never really know.
Right.
Yeah, things are definitely slowing down, and we've all felt it.
We just need one more negative GDP quarter here, and then we're classified as a recession.
That's right.
Here's a question I would have in terms of like your portfolio. Are you like, everyone always like go to cash. And this is where I stand. Like I'm literally not going to sell anything, and people are going to disagree with that. But I'm going to hold everything. And then when this thing corrects and things have leveled out, I'm just going to buy back into where I think the best, what I feel like were my best holdings again.
Yes. Yeah.
But I don't anticipate selling anything. For one reason is I haven't came up with a way where I'd put that money. A lot of people say go to cash, but what's the point of going to cash? Okay, you go to cash, all of a sudden you got it in there. Don't get me wrong, you could maybe wait a year, put it back in, but that doesn't fucking happen.
No.
People don't ever do that correctly. So I think I'm just going to hold everything where it is and then refigure everything out. Like once we're in the middle of this, like what company is actually performing best. And that'll help with my time horizon, because then I feel like, okay, maybe the next time this happens, I'll understand better which companies perform better.
That's what I've been thinking too. Going to cash, you're losing out to inflation. There's just no two ways about that. But yeah, for me, same thing. I'm holding everything. I'm not leaving. Yeah. Yeah. Just waiting it out. I mean, that was always my portfolio strategy from the start. I went in with expectations like if the market goes down, I mean, I'm here for the long term, and just if it goes down, then that's just a discount for me later on to put more money in. So
Got to make more sales so we can put some more bucks in
well,
there.
that's the other part of the equation. Yeah. So yeah.
That's kind of where like I've transitioned my focus totally. It's like, hey, like, okay, doom and gloom, but if I can just all of a sudden raise how much money I earn right now, it's going to give me a bigger opportunity in 2 years. So it's like, hey, my investment, my portfolio is doing nothing, not like that I don't care, give a shit. Like it's a fucking gut punch when I do my net worth statement every month and I'm like, holy fuck, like I'm getting pounded right now. You know?
I know. I just don't even look at it, man. Like, just get out of there. Yeah. Come back in a year,
Yeah, revisit it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of where my thesis is, and it can be such an opportunity for people. Like there's still industries that are going to totally thrive no matter what. And there's probably going to be some opportunities that come of it. You just got to figure out a way.
Yeah. And it sounds like, you and I have a very similar, plan for the next year or two. So yeah.
I like it. I guess we'll end it on that unless there's any final points.
No, not from me.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man. Definitely learned a shit ton today. That was awesome.
I want to be on again soon.
Yeah. We'll bring you back. We got to have Landon here when Brady comes back.
Yeah.
Landon and I have a lot of questions.
He would too.
All right, awesome. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. See you next week.